Experience, quality, consistency, and the quickest turnaround times in the grading industry? We are proud to partner with SGC Grading. Check them out at www.gosgc.com.
Hi, I'm Danny Black.
And I'm John Newman.
Welcome to Card Mentions. Well, hello. Welcome back to Card Mentions, episode number 347. I'm Danny. That's John. And we got a great topic tonight. Is social media good for the hobby? So we're going to talk about that. But before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Stadium Insurance. As a collector and a dealer, I cannot preach enough, and I've had my collection stolen. So stadiuminsurance.com. Definitely want to give them a shout out. What's going on, John? How you doing?
Yeah, man. You know, that just to piggyback off that, you have to have, like, if you're sending anything of significance or receiving anything of significance hobby wise, you really need insurance. And I know people like get the insurance from the United States Postal Service. They like to fight it. They don't want to cover everything. You really got to have your own insurance. And like any insurance, right? You never want to use it. That's not a good thing. You know, you never want to use your homeowner. That means something bad happened, but you really do need it. It's actually very affordable. As someone who bulk subs with SGC, that's a must for me when you're sending maybe $50,000 worth of cards through the mail in one box, literally one box. I've had a couple orders, probably six figures in a box, and it's nervous. I tell you what, I used to bite my nails a lot more, but since I have collector's insurance, I bite them a lot less. But it still makes you a little nervous sending that kind of stuff in the mail, but it's important.
Absolutely. All right. So what we're going to talk about tonight is social media good for the hobby? Now, I know you have absolutely no opinion on this. I had to twist.
Good night, everybody.
Right. I had to twist your arm to talk about this. Why don't we start off by talking about, like, what do we mean by a hobby social media?
Well, first off, I'm glad you got the memo that we were wearing blue polos today.
Looking sharp.
So first off, you can't wear blue polos if you're in social media in the hobby. No, I'm just kidding. Well, let me answer the question right off the bat. Right, we're part of it, right? So for me to sit here and say it's bad is sort of disingenuous. It's good and bad, and I think that's what we're going to really touch on tonight is the good and bad of it. It's a double-sided coin, right? And I like to think, I fall more on the good side of it more often than not. No one's perfect, but it can be bad too. We're going to talk about that and maybe ways to sort of avoid that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Warren says that we look like umpires.
We do. After he said that, it took that comment, and now I can't unsee it. You're out of here.
John looking quite
make the home run, son?
Ruben's giving you a compliment. You're looking svelte without the sweatshirt. Looking skinny.
That's
looking
over
sharp.
there. I can put it on, but this is what I wore to school today, so I kept it on.
Mookie says, "Am I a social media?" Yes, Mookie, you're a social media.
What is the definition? Let's start with the baseline. This is your topic. Let's give credit where credit's due.
I think it includes Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, podcast, and anybody who comments or can comment, because that's the social media portion of it. It's that there is a social aspect to it. Without that, it's just a one-way information.
Yeah, so I'll answer it like this, man. Social media, and I agree with how you assess that. Anyone that creates any sort of content, whether it's a response, whether it's a video podcast, an audio podcast, a reel, a short, that's all social media. That's all content, and much of it, and a good percent of it, just probably more good than bad. Let's start out by saying that. But there's different forms, right? And it's like anything else. There's good and bad in everything. And if you use your social media or your content in a positive way, right, to promote the hobby, paint it in as much of a positive light as you can. I think that's good. I want to talk about something recent. Collectible media, which is Ray Schulte's offshoot social media of the National, does a great job with it. Ray's a great guy and a friend of mine. He posted recently, did a post, and he had like pictures of 5 or 6 of the more well-known social media people in the hobby, and then he asked the question, right, or the account asked the question. I don't know what I'll say the account because I'm not sure. I'm assuming it was Ray, but I don't know that. He asked the question was asked, who are your favorite social media, or who are your favorite hobby influencers? And I'm not a big fan of the word influencers. I get that we have an influence, and hopefully it's a positive influence, but influencer in the hobby for me has sort of a negative connotation. And so I responded that, I'm not looking for hobby influencers as someone who loves a hobby. I'm looking for hobby ambassadors and advocates, people who put the hobby ahead of themselves, right? The hobby's bigger than any one person. The hobby was here before us, no doubt, and it's going to be here after us. And so I didn't like that. I didn't like the influencer connotation, and that response actually garnered a lot of likes. Not that's all about that, but that kind of told me sort of other people are thinking very similar to my comment. So that's kind of my stance, right? Even with my own content, am I 100%? Probably not, but I do try to put, we're here because we have a passion for trading cards, right? Whether it be sports, non-sports, memorabilia, whatever is your thing, or a combination of all those things. And I always have a problem with someone who tries that kind of makes themselves bigger than the reason we're here for in the first place. And I think there's a little bit of that going on. Maybe some of the people in that post from Collectible Media qualify for that assessment. And so that's a little bit of where I'm coming from. And that's where it can be bad when it's all about me and not the hobby that we all have a passion for and love.
I just typed in there that this is why Twitter only allows 280 characters. Couple comments on here. Mike Petty said he quoted Newman the other day, the hobby is the people. He says, I'm antisocial, unfortunately. The benches influenced me, and I think he's given us some sort of sideways credit there. So thank you very much, Mike. That if we even make you smile once on a Friday, we'll take it. Mookie, you are now officially part of social media because you commented. Adult Drink John is under the influence.
I wish I was. The older I get, I have a few more pounds. It takes a little bit longer, so I'm not there yet. Probably good for everybody, myself included. And someone, with the tagline of Sports Card Nation being the hobbies of people, some will say, "Well, John, how do you say you put in people who put themselves in front of the hobby, but that's your tagline?" The crux of that is we're all the hobby together, right? It's not about one person. If we weren't in the hobby together, there'd be no hobby. No one was collecting cards. My issue is when someone puts themselves as bigger than larger than life or larger than the hobby, and that's where I draw that distinction. So, for those who are wondering, the tagline and kind of my stance, do they mesh with each other? That's to explain that, if I need, not that anyone necessarily asked, but I wanted to put that out there and kind of answer the question before it actually was even asked.
All right. Well, I'm going to steal the mic for a minute here.
Yeah.
Mookie says, "Don't trade your passion for glory. Eye of the Tiger." Great reference.
Now I'm going to hear Earworm. I'm going to hear that song probably.
I know we got to play it in the background. Bobby Baseball. This is what we want to get into. Instagram has been a fun way to share my collection and look at other collections. A few minutes a day flipping, scrolling through card post is fun. Absolutely could not disagree. Could not agree more with that. Sometimes the feed stinks and I can't see all the comments. Not your guys' fault, of course, just technology. Part of social media, Warren. Sorry about that. We have a couple different feeds and sometimes that plays into it, but we see them all. So if you type to us, we see it. We see them all.
And self-critical, Danny, one of the things I need to get better at is posting more card stuff. I do. I don't want to make it sound like I don't. I need to post more. A lot of my posts are, maybe like obviously promoting the episode coming up on Friday, the one coming up on Monday. I do some of my mantras, which are, I admit, are a little preachy, but a lot of them are just reminders to think about things in a certain way. I do a card of the day. Maybe I need to do, more than one or two a week or whatever. Sometimes I don't even get to them. And this sounds weird, but sometimes I feel funny posting a lot of my inventory because I don't want to be braggadocious or if that sort of thing. But I do get people saying, "Hey, man, show more of what you have," right? And so it's that fine line, right? What's too much and what's not enough. And I'm trying to navigate, even after being in this hobby so long, I'm still trying to navigate, that fine line of showing too much stuff. And, even when I talk about how I did as a dealer at a card show, I never mention figures because I don't, want someone to hear something and say, "Oh man, that's all he cares about," because it's not true. And so I'm very cognizant of the content I try to put out there. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I'm sure I've done stuff that, maybe rubbed somebody the wrong way or they didn't appreciate, but I try to do the old put yourself in their shoes. If you heard yourself say that, how would you feel, kind of a deal. And so I try to play by that rule. But there's everyone comes in different shapes and sizes and different styles, and to each their own, so to speak.
Except for us who dress alike, and I just think we look adorable tonight.
I gotta say this
for people in the chat room: do we or do we not look adorable? I mean, pinch our cheeks adorable.
I don't know if adorable. I'm trying to think the last time I was called adorable. I think the last time I was called adorable, I didn't actually know what the definition of adorable was. I was probably 2 years old, in a carriage, and someone, said, "Oh, he's adorable," and I didn't understand it yet. So, I'll take it. If someone will second that, I won't argue with you. We did not coordinate the outfits, contrary to what it looks like right now.
Orlando, I'm a little bit hurt here. I got to be honest. I'm a sensitive guy, and he's here for you, John.
Well, I think Orlando likes you too. He wouldn't be here. There's plenty of stuff with just me, so he wouldn't be here.
We look like adorable Smurfs.
Now I have been. That's another. I've probably been called the Smurf when I was little. I was kind of short.
Ruben says that we can't be called adorable.
No, it's been a long. My wife probably wouldn't even call me adorable.
Mookie says we look like.
I don't blame anyone else for not using that term.
Mookie says that we look like we should take the keys at the valet stand. That's
Yeah.
adorable. That's funny. All right.
We look
So,
like alternate umpires. Like we're in the
yeah,
front row, and if an umpire gets hurt or something, then we come in
we're the
and
spring training fill-ins.
we're the
All right.
scab umpires.
I feel strongly about some stuff on social media and I want to talk about it. I think social media is a great place for community. I think that community is what the hobby's about, and social media is just another way of expressing community. We can't go to card shows all the time, but you can always go on talk on shows like this. You can use Twitter, you can use Instagram, you can listen to podcasts, and you can comment and make relationships. And I just think that's hugely important. Um, Friendship, making those friendships. I mean, John, you and I became friends, or at a social media, um, and that's something where I'm meeting somebody tomorrow at a card shop who I met through social media, and I just think that's huge. Learning about the hobby. I have learned more about the hobby since I've been involved in hobby social media than I probably did in the 10 years before that. The resources that are out there, the knowledge of the people in this chat room is unbelievable, much less what you can pick up elsewhere. So I think that's important. Entertainment, absolutely. Entertainment should be part of the hobby. If you're not having fun, there's no reason to do this. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
I gotta say that's
entertainment.
a great point. It's one of the mantras, right? If you're not whatever, this is an outlet, right? The hobby is an outlet. Like my dad doesn't collect cards anymore. He has cards from when he did. Still, he didn't get rid of his collection, other than what he gave me or that I stole. I'm just kidding. But my dad's a drummer. My dad's 86 years old and still plays in 3 bands. I don't ask me how, but drumming is his outlet, right? For the hobby, for a lot of people, it's their outlet, right? Or one of them. Don't have to be your only outlet, or it just can be a part of it, right? It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a release from the everyday mundanes of life. So if you're hobbying and it's not fun, like I'm not telling you to get out. One of my mantras is like try a different way to hobby and see if it reignites that passion. But if you've tried different things and you're not having fun in the hobby, then you really got to reassess if maybe the hobby's for you. And I don't want anyone to leave. Don't get me wrong, but this is supposed to be fun, right? If you're not having fun, you really got to take a step back and say, "Hey, how can I make this fun?" Or maybe it's just not my thing, right? And I hope it's the first part, not the latter, but that's up to the individual. So yeah, and great points by you, right? It's informative. I learned stuff. I've been in doing this a long time, and I learned stuff every day. And some of it definitely comes from social media. It's a great way to make the world, which is a big place, a smaller one, and open those lines of communication, that camaraderie. Completing sets or making deals or trades, or just even the one of my favorite things to do, right? Sending a rack to somebody. Just, hey, I know you'll appreciate these. No strings attached, right? And social media makes that possible, or a good percentage of that. So again, like I started off the top of the show, right? There's more good social media stories than bad, but social media can have some pratfalls too. And I don't know how much you want to get into that, like pet peeves, if you will, or things I don't like.
Well, one of the questions I asked in the chat room is, do people prefer to show their cards on social media or look at other cards on social media? And I think there's advantages and disadvantages to both. I like to share something if it's a significant story to me. It's not about the dollar value of the card, but if it's something, I showed you earlier. I'm collecting multi-sport athletes right now. I picked up 2 cheap cards, and I like to show these. I hope that this is a PC that people find fun, and it's something that people like. Um, Will I look at other people's cards? Yeah, if it's on my feed, but I don't know that I go out of my way as much to look at other people's cards. How about you?
Listen, I love cards, man. I started when I was 7 years old, pulling a Reggie Jackson. The stories ad nauseum, right? And that's what started me on this journey, right? Here we are. That was 1979. Here we are. It's 2024, and I'm still here on alive and still in the hobby. And like Dr. Jim says, like Dr. James Beckett says, the greatest hobby in the world. And sure, that's a biased statement, but for those of us in the hobby, I think we'd all probably give a thumbs up and agree to that. And that's, I we both grew up, Dana. Here's an interesting question for even people in the chat room. We both, and I got a feeling a lot of people in the chat room too, right? We both grew up in an era before social media existed. I was before Facebook and X or Twitter or whatever it's called this week.
I believe if you divorce it, it becomes your ex Twitter.
X Twitter, right?
Yeah.
X Twitter. So I was around before cell phones and social media. And I'm glad I was. I'm glad I've lived through both of those eras, if you will, right? The before social media and now, because I kind of appreciate, or at least I think I do, what social media really is about. But to a younger group, right? They only know social media. They don't know a time before social media. I remember growing up, and we knew where our friends were. All the bikes were in somebody's front lawn. That's where we knew our buddies were, right? We didn't have a cell phone to type, WYA, where you at, right? We just looked for bikes, and like that's where everyone is. I'm pedaling over there and knocking on the door. So I'm glad I grew up. Well, I wish I was probably 20 years younger. I'm glad I grew up in that era before what we know now. But at the same time, I'm appreciative of what we have now because it's made the hobby community a tighter one, larger and smaller at the same time, right? We can have relationships with someone on a different continent. Forget a different state. We on a different continent. And even with the podcast, to see some of the numbers and people who listen to it in Britain and Australia and New Guinea, like some of the countries on my demographics report, it makes me feel good. Not so much that they're listening to my show in those countries, which is, don't get me wrong, I'm appreciative of that, but the fact that the hobby is in those countries too. And that warms my heart, makes me feel good. And this, talk about hobby influencers, right? When you see clickbait, the hobby's dead or dying. It's so far from the truth. It's different. It's kind of settled down and calmed down, but the hobby's been around for over 100 years, and it's going to be around when we're all gone as well. And that's a positive thing.
The chat room is fantastic right now. Orlando made a comment, and I think this kind of sums up a lot of what you and I are saying. Collecting alone was not as fun.
Yeah.
And that's just really, I think, what it boils down to is, you get something, you want to share it, you want to see your friends' cards, you want to, one of the biggest things, we haven't even talked about is buy, selling, and trading online, in Facebook groups with your friends. You and I have, sent cards and done deals. And that's all, a part of social media. And there's people who make their living selling on social media. And I want to acknowledge that's a huge part for a lot of people. Ruben asked a question earlier, can you be a dealer in today's world without a social media presence? And I'm just going to say it makes it a little bit harder. But you're smirking. So
I'm smirking because Mookie never fails to disappoint with the comment. I'm reading the comment. These umpires are not enforcing the pitch clock.
Yeah, Wait, Mookie, be honest on who the
and it takes a
violator
lot
is.
to make me laugh out loud like that. That one was funny.
Be honest on who the violator is. Wait a second. So, me too, Mook, but I draw the line at Cousin Tony. Cousins are awesome guys. Completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Good eggs. They are.
Yeah, that's the beauty, right? That's the beauty of social media, right? It there's more content is good than bad. Again, I know it's probably the third time I said that, but at the same time, it's not all good either, right? You got people who will tell you what to buy, or the some people hate the I word, right? Invest in or investment, and I'm a firm believer that cards can be investment if that's the alley you choose to go down. That's not, I started at 7 years old and I got at the time, probably $2 Reggie Jackson, and I thought I was on top of the world, right? It's never been about investment to me. It's been about enjoyment. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm disappointed when a card I might have in my PC goes up in value. I don't think anyone would be sad about that. But it's not why I'm in the hobby. Even as a dealer, I just enjoy. Where does a lot of the money I make at a show go? And buying more cards that I'm not going to sell. So so you may not do it for investment, but to say that it's not an investment, and that's a whole nother show. We could go down a rabbit hole there. But there's good and bad. I even when I give my opinion, I always try to use like I think, not I know. Right? I can't guarantee. I went on Sports Card Nation before the pandemic hit the states and said, "Hey, when it hits here, and it's coming, unfortunately, cards are going to be on the back burner and they're going to take a back seat." And I was wrong, right? I was wrong. We had the COVID crescendo, and cards made major moves, and then that's good. But so I was, I just when you think you know everything, right? You don't. Like I said, I learn something every day. The minute I stop learning in the hobby, that means I've either given up or stopped paying attention. And if I do that, I'm probably done anyway.
So how many?
I was watching the pitch count there, Mookie. It was close. I went right up against it.
Orlando says, "I just don't like the channels that repeat each other's news." Well,
it's tough. That's tough. That's tough. A good point. But the news cycle has kind of quieted down. I think we can all agree, right? We're not getting all that breaking news during the heyday, so it's hard. I mean, and hobbies been around so long, it's hard to come up with a new topic. I'm sure we're not the first ones to talk about social media in the hobby, right? Someone else has covered this, but we just felt it was kind of pertinent with that post. For me, it really hit a nerve with the post that I mentioned with Collectible Media and who's your favorite hobby influencer. And I really, I know a couple people on that post mentioned Sports Card Nation podcast as their favorite, and I appreciate that fact from the bottom of my heart. But I don't really want to be a hobby influencer. I just want to be an ambassador and an advocate. I'd rather someone say John's just a good hobby guy or just a good guy.
Just a quality umpire.
Or I learned something, or he made me think about something in a different sort of way. I don't want to be. I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking. I don't like influencer. Sounds like a political term, like a lobbyist that goes to Washington and tries to get their agenda passed or I don't want to be I want to be a positive influence, but I don't want to be necessarily an influencer. And I don't know, some people that might make sense too, but that's just my take on it. I just, if when I'm not here anymore, I hope people say like John was a great advocate and ambassador for the hobby. He highlighted some of the better things of the hobby and made me enjoy the hobby slightly more than I already was. I hope that's what people take away. And I don't want to be voted a hobby influencer. I just want to be. I'm one guy out of millions of people who are all doing the same thing, right? I put my pants on one leg at a time. Sometimes I try to put it on twice or both legs at the same time, and I do a face plant. And then when you get in your 50s and you're doing face plants, it's harder to get up. So, I know that sounds a little hokey, but I just want to be, you know, I just want to promote the hobby, and hopefully everyone's enjoying it in a similar way than I am. And if I can aid in that, that's the best compliment that I can ever be paid.
Well, very nice sentiment, and it's hard to transition out of that. But I'm going to go to Orlando, who said that you guys spoke for 2.5 hours with no pitch clock. Orlando, what was the time of possessions? I want to know time of possession.
No, and listen, Orlando, and I love it. This is Orlando. I think the first 17 minutes were just Orlando, and I'm very thankful for that. And I think it made for better. Speaking of content, it made for better content. And Orlando is another guy, longtime hobbyist, knows his stuff, loves the hobby. It comes out his pores, and that stuff's contagious, right? You can tell, at least I can. I'll brag this much. I'm pretty good at telling when somebody really loves the hobby or when someone's putting on a little bit of a dog and pony or show, right? I think I've been in it long enough to kind of smell the smell test, right? Smell the difference. And so Orlando's one of those guys, like you watch his stuff, you know that it's real, it's genuine. He loves the hobby, sharing that love and passion with the rest of us. I tried to do the same thing. If I do 75% of the job Orlando does, I'm content with that because he does such a great job. And there's a lot of great people, right, that love the hobby and share their love and passion. And the more there is, right, the better the hobby is. The where you get in trouble is again the people that put themselves sort of in front of the cards, and that's one of my pet peeves, right? Or someone to post pictures, and I'm not going to sit here and say I haven't post pictures. When we go to the national, right, we pose with our friends, and then we post the pictures on social media. I'm talking about people just that just tag people incessantly or post pictures with someone they met for like 10 seconds because of how it makes them look and that sort of thing. And that sort of stuff sort of, I don't want to say, yeah, it does bother me. Like it becomes more about look at me rather than hey, look at the hobby, right? And when it's more about look at me than look at the hobby, that's kind of the exit I'll get off about. I don't, that's not the content that I appreciate. And but to each their own. Some people would argue probably against me and say, hey, I like that kind of stuff, man. It's why award shows are so popular, right? The red carpet.
That's why they also play music and pull people off stage. Just Vintage Oddball Cards says, just don't tell people how to collect or what to collect. And I would say you and I agree on a couple things not to do. That would be one of them. Just show respect, even if you don't agree with people. And you don't have to.
There's another big thing with me, Danny. And you listen to everything I've done, which is a lot of stuff now. It's, you'll hear me say on podcasts or even as a guest on someone else's podcast or show, you'll hear me say, I don't know. It's okay to say I don't know. We don't know everything, right? It always gets me. My favorite line, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, right? My favorite line from a content creator is when they say, the 3 years I've been in the hobby, I got this all figured out. Like, are you kidding me? I've been doing this 40 years. I don't have it probably 70% figured out, right? It's
I've been
okay
married.
not
I've
to
been
know.
married 20 years, and I got none of it figured out. So
Yeah, it's okay not to know everything, and it's very refreshing to me. I'll speak for myself here. I don't know how anyone else feels. Um, it's very refreshing to hear someone say, "I don't know," or "I'm not sure," or even to say, "I think it's this, but I'm not 100% positive." Right? But you got a lot of people who just can't, whatever that inner voice, they just can't do that, right? And so they'll make something up or fake their way through a conversation and then be kind of factually incorrect later on, right? And sometimes it's an honest mistake. I'm sure I've said something, where maybe I was off by a number or something like that. But I also will say I don't know. Someone asks me something, I'll say, "Hey, I'm not sure," or "That's not my cup of tea to give you a definitive answer." And I think people, I've had people tell me, when you said that or I heard you say that, it's refreshing because I heard 5 other guys chime in on that and be wrong when they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And so when hearing you say, and that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm the odd bird there, but I don't have a problem saying I don't know. And I appreciate when other people say, "Hey, I don't know. I know this, but I don't know that." Right. And it's okay.
well, I do know that Bobby Baseball's been making some great comments tonight. He says social media can magnify positivity or negativity. I say let's keep magnifying positivity via our hobby and love of cards. I could not agree more with you there. I think that one of the things in Hammer 44, Good Friday Evening All, um, I think one of the things that we talk about is being positive, and that is appreciating each other. The
Yeah.
respect chat room for each other's channels and each other's feeds, and it's a mutual respect club, and that's friendship, and that's getting along. And when people ask me, why do you do social media, and why do you go on shows and just talk about these topics, it's because I do want to talk about them in a positive light. This is what I can do. Can I go around to everybody and convince them, one by one? No, I can't. But what I can do is do these shows and try to get the positivity out there. I try to be a positive person on the shows. I think I generally am. And that's important to me. And that's how I like to enjoy my social media. I mute people, absolutely have no problem muting people in my feed, that have negativity and stuff like that. And, I just think you control, what you want to hear. And if you want it to be positive and if you want to enjoy it, then it can be done.
Yeah. Speaking of negativity, like there is a place for that. Like I will talk about bad stuff that's going on, right? But you got to be balanced, right? You can't. There are accounts, we know who they are, that they're only going to talk about the bad stuff constantly. That's it. If there was no bad stuff going on, they'd have no content they would be producing. I don't like those accounts. Whatever you want to call them, watchdogs or whatnot. I like people who talk about both sides of the coin, right? And frankly, there's more, just like in content creation, there's more good than bad. There's more good stories in the hobby than bad ones. And that's why the hobby is so great. I will talk about some of the bad stuff sometimes just to give context to the hobby. But I'm not doing every episode I do is not always going to be about the dark side or the bad side or the bad people that are active in the hobby. I'm just not going to do that exclusively because it'll wear on you, right? If all you do is talk about negative stuff and that's it, then it's going to put you in a bad mood. And that's not what the hobby should do. But at the same time, if maybe reporting or talking about something that's going on that's not good, maybe it helps someone avoid that pratfall. And that's kind of why I'll do it, right? And when I do it. So I just don't, social media accounts that all they do is report bad stuff constantly and 100%. I'm usually don't follow them because I just, number one, they're usually not breaking much news to me. I found out through another account that's more fair and balanced. and I rather follow
Like
that
Hobby News
account.
Daily.
HobbyNewsDaily.com. There you go. Nice plug.
Checks in the mail.
there. But but to each, again, it's their channels. They can do what they want. I can't tell someone, but we have a choice to follow, listen, or like whatever we like, and so that's just kind of my take on it. You know what I mean? And again, the hobby. This is supposed to be fun, man. We got the national now, 4 or 5 months away. I call it the Super Bowl, the hobby. We talk about that camaraderie, right? For a lot of us, it's the week we get to see everyone in person, and do stuff after the show besides during the show, whether it be a dinner or a ball game, right? And make memories and stories, and that's kind of the hobby that I like to cover, rather than someone robbing somebody or ripping someone off, or we have to talk about it, but that's not all I'm going to be talking about. Otherwise, I'd be in a grumpy mood a lot more than I already am. I'm married 25 years. I don't need any additional, help in that department. I do want to comment real quick, Tony. The Kenny Pickett trade. A lot of people know I'm a Steeler fan. A lot of people also know I'm not a Kenny Pickett fan. I am feeling very good about not having him on the roster. And so he's the Eagles' problem at the moment. Although I will say this to Tony.
Tony did comment, John.
Yeah. What's that?
Tony said, after seeing Kenny Pickett get traded today, I took to social media to vent. My apologies to the guys pumping unproven players. LOL.
Listen, I've been venting about Kenny Pickett for 2 years. I didn't like the pick that much when they made it. It's kind of reared its ugly head. He was a 4th round grade. They picked him at number 20. He's proven to be, if you believe the reports, which I tend to believe because they're coming from multiple sources, not a great teammate, kind of a sulker and a powder. Some tells me the Eagles are going to trade him. They got him to use as another trade chip. So I don't know how long he'll be in Philadelphia, but I will say this. I'm not rooting against Kenny Pickett, the individual, but I'm just glad that we've sort of moved on from the player. That's all. I'll leave it at that. Not to make it a football show, but I'm in a better mood today when you broke the news to me, by the way.
I thought you were going to
Pickett does stink.
Listen,
I'm a keep it real guy, right? Pickett does stink, but I'm glad he doesn't stink for the Steelers anymore. That's all.
Well, I will say I'm not sure Russell Wilson's going to have that much better of a year, but
listen, I'm not here to tell you that Russell Wilson's the next quarterback for the 5 years for the Steelers, but he's gonna have to make do this year, and I think he's got a little gas left. If you're asking me, do I want a 35-year-old Russell Wilson or a 26-year-old Kenny Pickett? I'm taking Russell Wilson for a year. I'll take Russell Wilson.
On social media, Russell Wilson strikes me as somebody who uses hearts, and Kenny Pickett does not.
Yeah, I like Russell Wilson, the player, better than Kenny Pickett.
Mike Petty, I know this is a big part of his collection. Is PSA 10 1 of 1 Kaboomy. So he's looking that they all stink otherwise. That's hilarious. We're winding down on the last.
Dylan, that was probably the only football moment. I just, it's a nice day for me because the horror known as Kenny Pickett is moving on, and that's.
Thank you, Dylan. I'm moving on also.
As far as Gump would say, that's all I got to say about that.
But I did ask in the chat on we never really talked about what social media platforms do people really use. What do you use for the hobby? I use Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and I'll admit I do not use Facebook as much as I should.
Yeah, I try to use a little of everything. I dabbled with TikTok early on. It wasn't my thing, so I have a TikTok account. I probably last posted there 5-6 months ago. It's in the process of potentially getting banned in the United States, so I'm probably not going to start up now again. I try to limit my social media time. I've talked about this on my other shows, Danny. I really, and I was bad at one point, right? We all go to that rabbit hole, and 3 or 4 hours later, right? We're like, holy crap, it's 3 or 4 hours later, and you can't get that time back. So I kind of like, I compare it to a burning building. I try to get in and get out and as fast as I can and take in as much as I can in that process. I use them all. Twitter's for me to answer that question. Twitter's sort of my home base, and then or X or whatever it is. Again, that's my home base, and I'd say Instagram is my home away from home or second home.
Yes, and Dylan, who is the Whatnot King, is the Hawaiian King. Orlando says YouTube and Net54 only. And actually, Mike Penny made a comment that the deals on Net54 have not been there lately. So I'm curious if anybody else has seen that also. Just interesting because you can usually
and Ruben's quoting DMX. You gotta like that. X gonna give it to you. That's it. That's my DMX. I can only do.
I'm so lost.
Listen, if you've ever heard that in your car and you didn't sing 1 or 2 lines from that, we all have done it. We've all guilty as charged.
James says sales on eBay have taken a dive.
The hobby's settled down, which it's a great opportunity to buy some cards, right? Like,
is eBay social media?
It's become like eBay because they have a sports card division now. It's not new; it's a couple years old. They're buying entities, right? They partnered with ComC. I think they're part of social media. They post, right? eBay has social media accounts where they post card content and media. They're set up at the National. They have a corporate booth at the National, so they have a social media presence for sure.
Bobby says that they need a social media strategy. Yeah, they might be out there, maybe not with a good plan.
They have a department, though. I had a friend, I won't mention his name, that worked in. He doesn't anymore. He moved on, but they have a sports card and / content department. Now, what we could argue whether they're doing a good job with it, but that department actually exists.
I got to be honest. I don't. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't remember seeing them doing a ton of marketing for their sports card division, other than people using affiliate ads for them, which I know is
they post. They do post. If you look, they post. I mean, you might not be following them. Maybe that's why, but they do post card content. So
Dylan says eBay is not social media. Mookie says I don't think eBay is social media. It's pure marketplace. Fair point.
Yeah, but they've had breakers come on and done like live breaking and shows. That is a live break content. There's a live break content. I guess that's the the $500,000 question here.
And we got some new faces. So
a lot of people in chat today and live. And so I was gonna say I'll keep it short and sweet. We're not here without you folks, even though me and Danny would talk to each other with no one listening. It's more fun with everyone else as well. All right. We talked about that. That's part of what makes the hobby so great. So shout out to everyone watching and in the chat room as well.
Everyone has eBay except Pepino. Okay. Whatnot. Are we calling that social media because there's a chat element there?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can communicate with someone, right? Isn't that
Dylan? What do you think? I'm curious as a seller, but yeah, I think it's social media. Hello, one of one from Australia.
Yeah, He's been on the show. He does some great custom cards, by the way. Shout out to him.
Ruben, I got to see if that Friday is a Mensch Friday. But I'll probably, if it is, I'll be recording. Maybe we can have some people join me.
There you go.
Yeah. And if I don't make it to Strongville, it's because I'm trying to stay married the full 20 years. Dylan says for Whatnot, yes, it's a big chat thing like YouTube Live. So
yeah, it is. That's my thing. That's my thing. That you can chat. I don't do a ton of Whatnot, full disclosure, but you can communicate with whoever's running the room. Like that's, to me, that's content.
Father Son Vintage Cards says Whatnot has a great vintage community. I know they've worked hard to build their vintage up. They work.
I will say that this is it's growing. One thing that bothers me about Whatnot is people who label their room vintage, and then you go in there and then it's really not. It's sort of like clickbait.
I went into a vintage room that had an NBA Prison Break going on.
That's what I mean. I've had the same similar circumstances, right? It's advertised as vintage, and they're pulling Wemby's out. I'm like, he's vintage already.
If he's vintage, then I'm like, the creation of man.
Yeah, I'm Adam. If that's vintage, I'm Adam.
Yeah, I'm not going to finish that sentence. Mike Petty says Dylan has the best Whatnot channel. In his opinion, he's a great auctioneer and grades his cards better than the big three. Nothing is centered though. LOL. Dylan,
can you feel the love tonight?
This is social media.
I can sing an Elton John line. I'm gonna just throw that in there.
Well, this is social media. I got to hear what Dylan says. In reply.
They're piling on now.
Oh, that's hysterical. Dylan's getting a bad rep for his cards cut short. Did he say short or did I say? That's my bad.
Let's bring in Evan Mathis and get his take.
This is such a petty comment.
I'm biased, and I know I say this probably 2 out of every 3 episodes. This is the best chat room. Like I said, I'm biased, but I firmly believe that. That's not tongue-in-cheek. That's
best chat room in the hobby.
I don't laugh out loud at a lot of stuff, but this chat room gets me like laughing out loud. Even when I'm trying not to, I'll just read something and it just hit me and I just laugh. And that's great. That's great.
Dylan says I sell all off-centered cards on my channel.
Hey, you got to move them out the back door somehow.
Is it better to have a wide or short card? I don't know. I guess that comes down to who you're talking about. Centered cards are overrated. There you go, Dylan. There you got a tagline for Whatnot.
Who needs eye appeal?
Warren going out to get diapers. Always good to see.
When we can get Depends to sponsor the show. This segment of the show brought to you by Depends.
Well, I asked them if they would sponsor, and they said, depends. Dylan says, I did 4 straight hours of selling on Wednesday. Felt like 1 hour. Well, it's like dog years, I think, when you're dealing with cards. We have too much fun. All right, I'm gonna get us going on the home stretch here. Finish your thoughts on social media, because one of the things we talk about, and I just want to, not to go negative at all, but there are some people who use social media to try to take advantage and maybe put themselves ahead of others in certain ways. And I just don't like to see people do that and try to climb up the social media ladder, as they say.
For me, Danny, and everyone else watching, listening, I just don't like when it's more about them than the hobby, right? I promo Sports Card Nation, right? Which is a guest show. My promos are highlighting someone else. Hey, join me Friday when my guest is so and so, right? And we're going to talk about the hobby that we all love, including us both, right? It's when someone kind of props themselves up ahead of the cards. That's my content that I sort of shy away from or avoid. Be careful, right? There's more good than bad, and that's a good thing. And there's a lot of people producing great content, a lot of great people, many in this room right now that I enjoy as well. And so seek those out. Um, gravitate to people who make you love the hobby, even if it's a little bit more. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Yep.
Again, collect what you. I know it's cliche, right? Collect what you love, collect what you like, but it's cliche because it's true, right? You are the ultimate CEO of your hobby. You can collect whatever you want to, whenever you want to. You can change and pivot, and that's the beauty of the hobby is you can in the last few years I've started to collect more non-sports than I've ever have previously. I've added more boxing to my PC than ever previously, and that's tickets. I've added tickets as part of some of my PC, and that's the beauty of the hobby. And I got some, those are not areas of my expertise. I had to lean on other content creators that was more their lane, right? And that's the beauty of content creators. There's people that will know a little bit more about something than you are that can be very helpful. And I think I'll say this, it's hard to put a percentage. I think 80% of content creators and creation comes from people who love the hobby and will help you out. There's that other 20%, maybe a little bit lower, not so much, right? And it's all about maybe pulling a fast one or making a quick buck and exiting stage left. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you who's who. You got to kind of navigate that terrain and you'll figure it out. Usually someone rears kind of their ugly head and you can kind of tell. But seek out that positive, good stuff that makes your hobby more enjoyable. And there's plenty of it. There's plenty of it. It's no shortage, and there's more people doing it every day. And a lot of the new stuff is great as well.
Well, I think that you and I agree on a lot of the sentiments on how to handle it and the positives of the hobby, and where we fall on that. I mean, we're talking about people on cardboard, and how blessed are we? I mean, talk about the stuff that we get upset about is so minute in the grand scheme of the world that we're just so lucky to hang out and play with cards. And I really hope that everybody in this room pulls out some cards tonight. I hope you go through your cards tonight. If you got
I hope you don't have to pull them out, Danny. I'm going to stop you right now. I hope they're around you.
Yes.
Like they're around you. You don't have to pull them out. They should be around you if you're in your card room or where you do have your cards, right? Yeah, social media is an enhancer, right? It should enhance your enjoyment. It should enhance your hobby, and that's what it should be about. And same thing, you can always change your mind on social media, right? Maybe someone listens to the show and says, "I don't like these two knuckleheads," and that's the end of them. Maybe someone listens and says, "Hey, I like these two knuckleheads," right? That's you have the power to choose, and so use it wisely and have fun. Right at the end of the day, one of the things when we came up with this show, right, Danny, is we said, "Listen, we're gonna have fun with it." One of the first, we didn't have a whole set of rules, other than we're gonna have fun with it, and I think I can speak for you and say I think we're doing that. Hopefully some others are caught in the fun web as well.
I couldn't agree more, buddy. When we started this, and what did we say? We're into our third calendar year.
It doesn't feel like it. I'm not gonna lie. Like when you said that, I didn't even realize it until you said it. I'm like, I had to think about it. 13. I'm like, holy crap, he's right.
Yeah, we started.
Where does the time go, man?
Yeah, started the end of 2022 when I was skinny, young, and good looking. Yeah. So,
Man, I wasn't even 50 yet.
well, that's the way it works, John. All right, to everybody in the chat room, I'm going to say thank you a million times over. You guys have no idea what this does to us. This is our oxygen, and I say that every week, and it really does keep us going. You know, we have jobs and long weeks and stuff, you know, and lives just like all of you. And this is so much fun for me, and I know John the same way.
I'm laughing at Warren. Good night, knuckleheads. You know, and I'll keep it short and sweet, right? I've already said it.
There you want.
Greatest chat room. I have as much fun reading the comments. If you're having half as much fun listening to us two knuckleheads as some of the comments, and you know, even to those that don't comment, if you're listening, whether you're listening live or downloading the audio on a Monday or after that, we appreciate that, right? You know, there's other things you could be doing. There's other things you could be listening to. You're spending Friday night or every other Friday night with us, and that doesn't get lost on me, and I know it doesn't get lost on Dan. So, you know, from the bottom of my heart, we appreciate you. You make this is already fun. You just make it even that much more fun.
And I think we're going to end on this. Mookie says, "Fun as always. You earned your paychecks." So,
Danny, I'm doubling your salary.
Exactly. All right. On that note, say goodnight, John.
Good night, Jen.